The Seder could play
100 years old at least.
over 100, because I'm 100.
Yeah.
And it was at our table, at our Seder table. My first husband had leukemia, which in those years, I never heard of it.
I had some experiences like in my neighborhood of kids that I was really close with, where all of a sudden like people would kind of start turning on me.
And he got it from me, and when I got it, I was like, you bought something 2 years ago? Like, you can't commit to anything. You do love me. But fatness is still a very socially acceptable thing to make fun of. I mean, you really cannot escape it. And like, I was absolutely tormented.
I can remember being at 3 and being in 2nd grade and being almost like stalked by a kid who was 4 years older, you know. As I biked by him, he grabbed me and threw me into a tree. And
oh, side note, this is her brother. They look a lot alike when they're like right next to each other. But he's a tiny little thing she was.
So he's older.
He's 1.
I am a victim of like sexual abuse.
Someone or something causes an individual significant harm. And I believe it has harm that it impacts you of how you think and how you feel.
The way that I typically think about trauma is any experiences or sometimes sort of repeated experiences that overwhelm a person's capacity to cope.
You are thinking about it and have feelings about it that do not go away.
So it sort of surpasses the resources that they have to make sense of, to integrate, and to react to in a way that actually helps him establish a sort of a felt sense of safety again.
Those fears of the trauma that I experienced before that, like those voices still ring in my head today, right now.
It's oftentimes that they were hurt by somebody and then they didn't feel like it was either possible to tell somebody, or they told somebody and they were disregarded or dismissed. And that sort of deepens the wound around trauma and actually sort of creates a lot of what we then think of as sort of the symptoms of trauma, because there's this absence of being met that helps them to make sense of, integrate, and sort of effectively respond to.
When things happen, you can't change them, but you can learn to cope with them.
Because I learned early on that when I did take the risk to be vulnerable and share about something, especially something that was different or, you know, not the norm experience, people would just light up and say, me too. And it was this like radical connection.
You really can't feel sorry for yourself. It's your baby.
What does that mean to you? It's your baby.
It's your problem. It's not your problem or my mother's problem. Yeah. It's my problem.
It's my baby. It's mine.
Right. It's my problem, and I have. You're the one that has to cope with it.
You have to be self-nurturing. You really do have to learn to take care of yourself. And there's this very strong mind-body connection. And I realized that from, having to deal with AIDS, HIV, loss of friends, loss of family, loss of animals. So you have to allow yourself time to grieve.
Well, how do you cope? Number one, you can't feel sorry. The first thing I think is you can't feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
And the second thing, you gotta pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and keep moving. You need to keep going for yourself and for your children.
You can't fall apart because they need you.
Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
When my husband passed away and the kids we sent for my daughter who was in grammar school, my mother, she sat on the bed in Herbie's room, and the kids said, "What are we gonna do?" And my mother looked them in the eye and she said, "We'll handle it." I can remember that like yesterday.
Forgiveness is like my best weapon. You have more power when you can forgive someone that's done an incredible wrong to you.
Number one, you have to educate yourself, because I think that dispelled a lot of the fear.
And, you know, eventually the sun comes out.
Yes. It takes great courage to face our demons, shall we say? I don't even know if I love that term. But to face our grief.
Definitely.
For instance. Or trauma.
Yeah, I think
great courage.
Absolutely. And I think that the courage only comes from being in tune with yourself and taking the necessary steps and learning that when you do step out of your comfort zone into a new way of living and looking at things, a new life unfolds and opens up, a new world unfolds.
These parents basically just kind of took me underneath their wing and guided my emotional and spiritual health through a really difficult year.
And yes, like there are horrible things happening all over the world, but in order for us as a collective of humanity to heal, I think every person has to be able to own their story, and every person has to be able to feel the feelings that go along with, you know, their own grief and their own process.
You're not a victim of your circumstances. If anything, your circumstances are like a piece to becoming a conqueror.